also read your feedback or customer feedback
Yeah.
often. So how much do they inspire you to make sure that you're gonna be better as a company? Like the
Mhm.
solutions that you told
Mhm.
us are quite amazing. It also gives visibility to the customer. But how does it inspire you overall?
Yeah, I also say, like when you have a bad day, and everyone once in a while has a bad day,
Yeah.
Yes.
reading, like some of the feedback on some of the stories, that we are able to enable, like from a person that haven't talked with a family member for years and then they decide to send a token and this enable them to start, like talking again, or like the amount of couples, that have started because, I was shy
Yeah.
to ask this girl and I sent something, like thanks. So these kind of stories, is like, it really like fuels you in the sense that there is a reason, behind. And I, like when we do town halls also sometimes, like I like to share like with the team on some of these, like saying, like you may feel, that you are doing an order and that's an order, but you need to realize that behind every order, there is
It's
a story of two people, like trying to connect. So I think, like all that positive feedback helps, a lot. And at the same time, I believe that the negative feedback is also useful, because it's like customer has felt that way because of some reason. To me, what I always try to understand is like, is there really something broken in the process? It's a human error. Try to understand why, and customer is always right. It's like, why does customer feel that way? Where did we fail?
Right.
There are times that we can fix things, and I share automatically with the team, with the responsible of where I think the error came.
Yeah.
There are times, that if the issue is like, I don't know, with a rider, like the rider was like very annoyed, the only thing we can ask is to the agency, etc. Don't, train that rider, explain on why it is important, But I think it's good to read feedback.
Yeah, that's very true. Because what we see online is technically like a small percentage of the fulfilled orders. I'm just curious, how many orders did you ever get? Like the biggest order in the peak season?
Many tens of thousands.
Many things. What? Oh my God, imagine how many flowers go out on that same day. How many riders and how many people pack those flowers for it to get to you guys. So magkaroon tayo ng onting patience pala dito ha. Ang dami kong nalaman. I mean, ang dami talagang moving parts. Parang for us, I know it's a very, very special day, but we also have to put a little bit of understanding.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of factors that we really cannot control. Like what Saul said, there are a lot of parts na hindi naman nila kontrolado. They prepared for it, pero sometimes may mga mangyayari pa rin, which is unexpected.
Yeah, and given that season and also the volume, diba, the volume of orders, the team is actually doing their best to really extend, even give out, extra mile pa nga for sure our riders.
Extra love.
Extra love. Yan. So, yun, grabe. But I want to get into the exciting part of our discussion. With all the challenges that you face in this industry or niche, what are the milestones? Let's start with the sales. When did you hit your first million in revenue?
I think it was probably like after 3 months or 4.
What 3 months? Wait lang. Sobrang galing. Amazing. Like you did really well. Amazing. But how did that teach you also in terms of manual operations? Because you were doing it on Shopify back then.
Yeah. So, also it's true that because we were coming from Lazada, my mindset was kind of on the levels of Lazada. And I was like, this is still kind of
a small
peanuts,
one. Yeah, exactly.
Small, but we were of the opinion like, also in order to grow, you need to invest. And we were, like putting a lot of money on marketing, especially, I remember on our first 3 months, we were doing things like peso sales, bouquet at 1 peso, to try to really, because our goal on the first months was really like try to bring people to try us. Also because it's the way you stress test your processes and start thinking, but so it was really like a lot of, but to me, like I always remember like that 100 orders day that actually like that day we had an issue and we already had like 4 florists back then, but one was on his rest day and was sick and we needed to do, like 100 order with only like 2 florists. That those 2 florists today, like they are our head florists, already managing like the whole team. But I was like, wow, like that day, like it was the first day that operationally I was like, when you go to sleep on a day and you are like, I'm dead. Like, everything has happened. So yeah.
That was so fun. Pero ang galing ha. Imagine mo, even with those mga manual factors nga, yung mga tao kasi manual din talaga yan. Lalo na kung hindi tayo nakadepende sa system.
Yes.
Sometimes it's really the people who would bring you there. But let's talk about scaling. We heard that you've scaled to Vietnam, Thailand, and I think you're also in Singapore now. So can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so our goal from day one was actually like we wanted to do like a regional play. Also, because when we need to develop like a lot of our own tech, in order to do this, basically like we have already done the spend and invested on the tech development. Right. So and the problems, on the other countries are kind of the same. Yeah. So then we believe, that launching on another country is using part of what you have already spent anyway. Right. So then, like we went to Vietnam on 2019. Wow. Worst timing ever because we launched on December and then 2 months later COVID happened, so we tried to survive, etc. And 2021, once, like COVID was already over, we were kind of again on a good position. We decided to launch in Thailand. Right. And then last year, 2025, we launched on Singapore. So every 3-4 years, we have been, once we feel that things are starting to be a bit stable and boring again, we get some new challenge.
All right. But beyond the sales, let's talk about your personal milestone. I know you've sent a lot of orders across different countries, but what makes you proud today about Flowerstore?
Yeah, like to me, I remember like on the early days, like that, as I commented, that bell, every time you will hear it, I will go to try to read everything, read the message, because reading also the messages at the beginning helped me understand, like the reasons on why people is using us. Right. So it gives a lot of customer insights. And I remember, like, so those first day, like that bell was exciting. Then I totally remember the first day, that I went to the house of a friend and I will see on the lobby, like one of our boxes. And I will say, like, wow, like I have seen it. And then, like as also in the first years, like friends, etc., they will send me flowers when, a photo when they will see a rider, of us. So those kind of things, like, I think that sometimes, like when you are in the business, you kind of give it for granted. Yeah. But then, like those sometimes when something external pops up when you are not expecting it, I think that those things give you like a little moment of reflection. And then also, like to me, also I will always say like the thing that I love the most is when someone tells you, I have used you, and I have helped, especially like stories of people that don't have any other option, like W's, etc. And when you read about their stories, sometimes, like, and can be even like a bit very emotional.
That's
and
true.
then, like those emotional things.
Do you have a favorite
customer
testimonial?
No, like to be honest, like from a customer messages, etc. At the very beginning, we were reading them to understand. Now we don't really read them because they are printed automatically, etc. But so now really what I understand is from a customer feedback. After the order, we like to ask everyone, like, how did you feel? How was it? Just share anything. And I read all of them. That's always my first thing I do in the morning. And, like, to me especially, like there are some of these ones, like, I had, like my mom, we lost my dad like a few months ago, and this year my mom didn't have anyone. So we decided, to do it ourselves, and, still making it look like my dad with a mess. Those so kind of, there are sometimes that some of those stories are like, like, it gives you something,
That's true. That's true.
Oh, boss. Deserve mo malaman ng buong kwento niyan.
Huwag kang mag-alala. The full episode is now up on YouTube and Spotify.
Follow us on our social media pages for more updates. This is Benta Bosses by Quotable AI.